They say timing is everything in business and in life. I've learned the hard way that sometimes it's also a damn curse. Name's Owen Carter, 63 years old, titanium knee, owner of Carter Power Systems. The best damn generator installation. Service on the East Coast. If a storm took out your power, we brought it back, humming louder than your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving. My guys respect me. I built this company from the ground up with a beat-up pickup, a drill that overheated after 10 minutes, and a laminated quote book that doubled as a coffee tray, and I've always trusted family. That's why I made Leo Stevens, my son-in-law, the head of logistics. Smart kid. Grew up bouncing between relatives, still thinks ketchup belongs on eggs. But he's reliable. The kind of man who reads contracts twice and kisses his wife on the forehead every morning. That wife being my daughter, April. April used to be the kind of girl who'd rescue birds and tape poems to her bedroom mirror. These days, she mostly rescues wine bottles and hides how tired she is. Being a mom will do that to you, especially with a 5-year-old like Nolan, who once tried to plug in a toaster outside to see if it could charge. Anyway, Leo and I had a job in Virginia, a big one. The Riverwood Grand was adding 28 rooms and wanted backup power that could run a small country. I flew out with Leo on Tuesday. We were supposed to return Friday. That was the plan. But Leo, he gets this look when he wants something, like a mix between a lost puppy and a man who just remembered he left the oven on. On Thursday morning, he suggested we head back early. Said it would be a surprise for April and a chance to catch my wife Monica's birthday dinner. He even pulled out his phone to show me the cake he ordered. Chocolate ganache from Celia's. Cravings. A place so fancy they don't put prices on the menu, just seasonal suggestions. So I agreed. What the hell? I missed my recliner, and my knee had been clicking like a metronome on cocaine. Our layover was in Newark. You ever been there? Terminal C smells like burned pretzels and broken dreams. I limped over to get a coffee while Leo called April to check in, or so he said. But I got distracted, because right there by gate 14B, I saw my daughter. Only. She wasn't alone. April had her arms wrapped around a man I recognized. A little too well. Kyle Bennett, our eternal intern. 28, still wears skinny jeans like it's 2010, the kind of guy who brings a ukulele to company retreats. We'd kept him on because he was good with wiring and worse at asking for raises. They didn't see me. I stepped behind a pillar and listened. Not because I'm nosy, but because my gut told me this wasn't just a hug. April laughed that laugh, the one she used to do when I let her drive the mower at 15. And then she said it. Only when he's away. And only if Mom covers for me again. I didn't need a private investigator or a polygraph. I needed to not throw my coffee against the wall. Kyle kissed her neck. Then they talked about some seminar in Montreal and how Leo never checks the calendar. I'd heard enough. When Kyle walked off, probably to get organic almonds or something, I stepped into view. April froze. Her face turned the color of the airport chairs, this weird mix of navy and regret. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. I just looked at her and said, "You didn't just betray your husband. You betrayed me. And him, Leo, he was the son I chose." Then I walked, didn't even hear her reply. Not that it mattered. Words from liars are just air in a different shape. We flew home in silence. I told Leo I had a headache. It wasn't. A lie. Felt like my head was full of bricks and broken promises. When I walked through my front door, Monica was lighting candles on her cake. She looked up, smiled, and said, "You're early?" "Yeah," I said. Plans changed. She didn't. Ask why. Just poured me a drink and said, "You look like hell." I took the whiskey, sat on the porch, and watched the wind rustle through the maples. After a minute, I told her what I saw. And you know what she said? "Oh." So, you know now? No gasp, no denial, just resignation. Like I'd mentioned, the dishwasher was leaking. I stared at her like she'd just told me she kept a second family in Ohio. "You knew?" She nodded slowly. "It's not what you think." "What is it then?" I snapped. "Research? A case study on bad decisions?" She sighed and leaned back, eyes scanning the horizon like the answer was hidden in the clouds. "It's just a phase," she said. "April's confused. It'll pass. And then she added something that hit harder than any lie. We've all had our moments. That's when I realized something darker. She wasn't just covering for our daughter. She was speaking from experience. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the whiskey. That went down smoother than I expected. Not because of the ache in my knee either, though that damn thing always had a flair for drama when the weather changed. I didn't sleep because of what Monica said. We've all had our moments. That phrase spun in my brain like a bad transmission. I kept hearing it on a loop, in her voice, calm, measured, like she was reading a grocery list. At 3:15 a.m., I got out of bed and went looking for answers, and I didn't have to look far. There's a cabinet in the hallway, the kind that used to hold birthday cards and Nolan's drawings. Top shelf, left corner. I know because I've stored every Father's Day card there since 1999. Now those cards were gone. In their place was a plain cardboard shoebox. No labels, no name, just dust and quiet. I opened it. Inside were photographs, not of me, not of April, not even of Leo. No, these were older, more worn. Curled edges, handwritten notes on the back in a handwriting I didn't recognize. One said, July 1992, Savannah, you and that awful tie. Another, next time, don't let the waiter pick the wine. There were ticket stubs from concerts I never went to. Letters, real ones. On paper with hearts drawn in the corners, and then a photo hit me like a wrench to the ribs. Monica, in a green sundress I remembered. Only she was kissing a man with a jawline that wasn't mine, a man I couldn't name, but who looked too damn comfortable with my wife's hand on his chest. The past has teeth, and I had just stuck my hand in its mouth. I closed the box, put it back, and walked out of the house like it was burning down behind me. At sunrise, I drove to the lake, sat in my truck and watched fishermen lie to each other about their bait. I thought about April, about Monica, about how we all pretend things are fine until the silence gets so loud, it screams. Later that day, I saw April's name pop up on my phone. I didn't answer. She called 3 times, texted once. Dad, please don't tell Leo. Please, I'll explain. It was nothing. One time, I was stupid. Funny how liars always claim it was one time. Must be a package deal with guilt. What? She didn't know, as Leo had already started noticing. That night, he came home early from a job in Ellicott City. April wasn't expecting him. She'd told him she was exhausted and needed to rest, which is why she didn't hear him come through the garage door. I wasn't there, but Leo told me the next day, in a voice so flat it might as well have been on mute, what he saw. 2 empty wine bottles on the counter, 1 cork still stuck in the opener. A faint smear of red lipstick on the rim of the second glass. He called out. No answer. Nolan was sleeping on the couch, holding a Lego pirate ship and a crumpled piece of paper. Leo picked it up, a drawing, crayon. In the corner, Nolan had written, Me and Mommy and Uncle Kyle at the zoo. Uncle Kyle, not Mr. Kyle, not. Kyle from Daddy's work, Uncle. Leo put Nolan to bed and went to the master bedroom. April was asleep, or pretending to be. There was blood on the pillow. Just a little. She has nosebleeds sometimes, especially when she's stressed. But in that light, it looked bad. Like aftermath of a fight bad. The bed sheets were twisted like they'd lost a war. One of Kyle's. Hoodie's was half hidden under the nightstand. And then there was the lipstick, a stained napkin tucked in the bed sheets. Dark plum, not April's color. She sticks to neutrals, but Leo remembered that exact shade. Why? Because he'd seen it. On the intern girl who sat next to Kyle 2 months ago. At the company barbecue, she'd offered him a plate of ribs and smiled with that exact purple grin. Things didn't add up, so Leo did what any man does when his world starts wobbling. He didn't yell, didn't throw punches. He started collecting evidence. Meanwhile, I was back at home watching Monica cut flowers for the kitchen table like nothing had changed. You're quiet, she said. I grunted. I found your box. She didn't flinch. Thought you might. That man in the pictures? Was he Nolan's grandfather? No, she said. But he might have been if I hadn't married you. We stood there, 2 strangers holding memories like weapons. That night, I collapsed. One second, I was pouring myself a glass of water. The next, I was waking up in a hospital room, hooked to more wires than a streetlight. Nurse said it was a mini-stroke, something fancy called a transient ischemic attack, caused by stress, most likely. Lucky me. They found something else. While they were scanning me, a tumor. Benign, thank God. But the kind of thing that makes doctors suddenly care about your vegetable intake and your spiritual wellness. The doctor asked if I wanted visitors. I said only Leo. When Monica and April showed up the next day, they were told I wasn't taking guests. Doctor's orders, the nurse said. It wasn't. I just couldn't look at either of them without feeling like my insides had been swapped out for drywall and regret. Monica didn't cry. April did. But what struck me most, and it still echoes in my head, was when the receptionist said, "Sorry, only family allowed." And Monica replied, "I'm his wife." To which the nurse, without missing a beat, said, "Then why isn't your name on the emergency contact list?" That one hit her. I could tell by the way she clutched her purse strap, lay there in silence, tubes and beeping machines around me, thinking how weird it is that after 35 years, you can still feel like you don't know the person you shared a mortgage and a marriage bed with. Meanwhile, Leo was doing what I couldn't. He was planning his exit, calm, surgical, smart. He didn't need a fight. He needed a clean break. Left the hospital with a limp and a folder full of instructions about managing stress, like a couple of deep breaths and chamomile tea would undo a lifetime of chaos. Grace, my physical therapist, met me at the front door. She's the kind of woman who speaks in full paragraphs and doesn't pretend pain isn't there. Younger than me by more years than I cared to count, but smart, sharp, and too kind for someone who spends most of her day stretching out stubborn men with bad knees and worse attitudes. She read to me that first night back, a book of essays, called Strong Trees Still Wins, said I reminded her of one of the stories. Like an old oak, she said. Cracked, not broken. I didn't tell her how badly I wanted to believe that. While I was learning how to stand up without groaning, Leo was learning how to leave without setting the house on fire. The day after, I got home, he showed up with a box full of documents, not for me, for Kyle. Turns out Leo had installed a new camera in the backyard months ago after a raccoon started chewing on his grill cover. He forgot about it until he saw the drawing Nolan made. He pulled the footage. You can imagine what he found. He confronted Kyle in public, neutral ground, a diner off Route 7, middle of the day, people all around, no chance of escalation. Leo handed him a manila envelope with no words. Inside were timestamps, photos, and printouts of texts. Screenshots of Kyle sending April messages like, "Still taste like that honey bourbon lip gloss?" And then the letter, Nolan's letter to Santa. It read, "Thank you, Uncle Kyle, for the Lego castle, and for hugging Mommy so hard the bed made." The loud sound again. That broke Leo. Not the cheating, not the lies, not even the lipstick on a napkin. It was the sound of his kid, innocent, sweet, thinking a one-night stand was a bedtime story. Kyle didn't fight back. Didn't apologize either. Just stared at the letter for a long time and whispered, "Damn." April tried damage control, tears, excuses, the usual chorus. Monica backed her up, of course. Said Kyle had taken advantage. That April was confused. That every marriage had gray seasons. Leo packed a single bag, grabbed Nolan, and drove to Lena's place, April's sister. They hadn't talked in 2 years, but when he showed up, she opened the door and said, "It's about time." He filed for divorce 2 weeks later, didn't ask for alimony, didn't trash April publicly, just took his kid, kept his head down, and started sketching the blueprint for a new life. And here's the kicker. 6 months later, he opened his own engineering firm, Stevens and Carter Innovations. Not with me. With someone else. Harry Carter. My son. Not the one you've met. This Harry's mother was a woman I knew during a stretch in the 80s, when Monica and I were on a break. Though if you asked her now, she'd say we were married. I only found out about Harry during my hospital stay. Grace was adjusting my pillow when I muttered it, half drugged. "Tell Harry I'm proud." She asked who that was. I didn't answer. Turns out I remembered his name before I remembered my own. Harry had been working freelance as an engineer in Richmond. Leo found him through a mutual contact. The second he heard the last name, he reached out. When Harry met me a month later, he didn't shake my hand, just said, "Took you long enough." I didn't argue. Meanwhile, April's life unraveled like a sweater in a tumble dryer. Kyle ghosted her, moved to Seattle, changed his number. She found out she was pregnant 3 weeks after Leo left, tried to spin it as Leo's. But biology has rules, and Leo had been out of state for 3 weeks when the baby would have been conceived. Even Monica couldn't deny the math. April quit her job at the company. Tried to get a role at a competitor, but word spreads fast in our field. No one wants HR drama with a side of paternity tests. She now lives in a small condo across town, raises the baby alone, and only sees Nolan on weekends. And Monica? She stayed in the house. The neighbors call her the woman on the porch. Every evening, like clockwork, she puts out 2 glasses of wine, sits on the swing, watches the sun set behind the oak trees I planted with my own hands the year April was born. People say she talks to someone, maybe to me, maybe to the ghost of the life we thought we had. I haven't spoken to her since the divorce finalized. Grace says I should, but I won't. Some things don't need closure. They just need distance. These days, I spend my time between the office, where Leo occasionally consults, and a cabin I bought up in the mountains. It's quiet, has a deck big enough for morning coffee and the sound of nothing. And on Sundays, Harry comes over with his boys. We grill, talk about torque ratios, and bad wiring jobs. Sometimes Leo drops by with Nolan, who thinks every generator is a robot waiting to wake up. They call me Old Man Carter now, and I don't mind, because in the end, storms don't destroy strong houses. They just show you where the cracks already were. And me, I've still got a few cracks, but I'm not broken, not yet.